Welcome to the Insum Insider.
Welcome to the Inside. This is the Insum Insider, your source for Oracle Apex tips, techniques, methodology, and really wherever that discussion takes us. I'm your host, Monty Latchley, coming to you from America's fourth most populous city, Houston, Texas. And with me today is my good friend and member of the Insum family, Michelle Scamini. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Monty.
At the helm. Keeping us on time and task is our producer, French-Canadian Mark Rule. Mark, we appreciate everything you do for us. It's Thursday, November 12th, episode 21. And thank you for spending a piece of your afternoon with us. We're coming to you today through the miracle of StreamYard. Michelle, today's topic is machine learning.
I know. I'm really excited about it. Very timely.
Indeed. Got a quick one for you here.
All right.
A machine learning algorithm walks into a bar. The bartender asks, "What do you have?" The algorithm says, "What's everyone else having?" Thank you very much. It's nice to see our studio audience appreciates a good joke. Seriously, I don't know if you know this, but I'm actually a natural at machine learning. I really am.
A natural.
Yeah, absolutely. Ask me a question.
All right. What's 10 plus 9?
It's 3.
It's not 3.
It's 16.
Monty. It's 19?
It's 19.
All right. I don't know, Monty. I'm not buying that you are that much of a machine learning expert. But the good news is we do happen to have 2 machine learning experts with us here today. Insum's own Adrian Png and Heli from Finland. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Michelle. Hey, Monty.
Hey.
Hi. Hey, Heli.
Adrian, Heli, glad you could join us. And apparently, Michelle's convinced that you're the experts on the panel. So I'll turn it over to you and Heli and Adrian, and let's get right into it. It's a fantastic topic for us here on the Insider.
Well, I think, Monty, you're definitely not a machine learning model for sure.
Ouch.
Because the expert here really in the room is Heli.
Wow. I'm still laughing for the joke.
I'm so glad you guys put us out of our misery. Monty made me do that. I was like, okay. This is such an interesting topic, and it's true that it's so very timely. But I wonder if we could kick things off. Heli, I'm really interested in hearing how you got started with where did your interest come from? Have you been working on machine learning long, or is this a new interest of yours? I happen to know it's not. I follow you on social, but I'd love for you to share with us a little bit how you got started in this very interesting area.
Yeah, sure. So I always loved data. Actually, data is the reason that I came to IT. So IT was very boring to me in the beginning when I started at university, and I found it very boring. And I found it very, I couldn't understand anything about IT. So when the teachers or professors were explaining, I couldn't follow. But then I found databases and data, and suddenly it made sense to me. So data has always been my thing. And about 4 years ago, I started with my PhD, which is, of course, about data. But then I realized that actually what I want to do is I want to combine my knowledge about data to new knowledge about machine learning. I think it's almost 5 years. But anyway, a long time ago to me. And I started to learn about machine learning to be able to use both knowledge on data and new knowledge on machine learning to do some research and find new things that would improve the world, hopefully, make world a better place. And that's how it all started. And actually, when I started, I realized that this is what I always wanted to do, because this is combining 2 of my favorite things, data and mathematics, which is strange. I know everybody always laughs. How can anybody love math? But I do. It kind of makes my soul sing when I see mathematics, because numbers are so true. So there's no politics, there's nothing like that. Numbers are numbers, and I kind of love it. So machine learning it's me. That's how I came here, and that's why I enjoy being here. It's definitely what I always wanted to do.
Let me ask a quick question, Heli, though.
Sure.
I understand what you're saying about numbers or concrete. Numbers tend to be, black and white, 1 + 1 = 2. But like in machine learning, isn't it, it's not always so concrete.
No. But machine learning might be a very big lie, because machine learning is about data that can be lying, and about algorithms that can be lying too, and about the whole process that can really end up with a completely wrong results. So you have to be very careful. So it is not the truth. It is sophisticated guess, and you have to be very careful. We talk about bias a lot nowadays. The bias can come from the data, the algorithm, the way you use it, and so on. So there's always a huge risk that you actually make wrong predictions or wrong interpretations based on machine learning. So yes, you are right. Now you are the expert officially.
So 1 + 1 is equals to 2.
Yeah, it can be whatever, depending who you ask and what data you use to get the result.
Unless, of course, you're talking about quantum computing. So
and Adrian, this was you suggested this topic, which obviously is a very interesting one. So how did is this an area that you've been exploring? Have you been working with Heli? How did you?
Yeah, well, what's interesting, and I don't know if many people know this out there. I actually didn't start out school with a computer science degree, and I was pretty much in. I graduated from microbiology. Surprise, surprise. When I left school, at that time, I think bioinformatics was getting very popular, mostly because we started, being able to sequence the whole genome, and so there was a lot of interest. I decided that I just, I like building software, but I didn't just want to build another software. I wanted to build software that could be a little bit more intelligent, and so I wanted to find a way to kind of complement what I've studied, and so I took up a postgraduate degree in knowledge engineering. And it's a little bit broader than just machine learning. In knowledge engineering, we basically try and derive knowledge from data and try and create systems that could intelligently tell you outcomes and stuff like that. So I did machine learning AI stuff 2 decades ago when they said, wow, you actually never get to, you actually not have a job, right? Because the only people who would openly say that they use machine learning are probably the credit card companies, and it all had to do with how people were worried that machine learning could be wrong, like what we've talked about, and I don't know how much Terminator played a part in it as well, but there were a lot of apprehensions about machine learning, and it's so different right now, and quite shocking, right? The total reversal where now everybody just wants to have this black box that could do everything. But in the past, nobody liked a black box. You didn't want something that helped you make a decision without being able to explain to you what it is. And there were a couple of algorithms back then that could tell you things, right? Things like decision trees. They could list out what are the various factors that they found out that influences a person's decision, for example. But things like neural networks are more popular now. People like to talk about deep learning.
Yeah.
It's a complete black box, and people love it, right? It's like,
I think people are better today. I think people are better today with the black box. We appreciate APIs. I think we're comfortable with things that we throw it over the wall and we expect something to come back. I think there's a comfort there that maybe didn't exist back then. But you said this was 2 decades ago, Adrian. Was machine learning 2 decades ago, was it a lot more theoretical, or what was available then? I have to think things have improved dramatically in the last 20 years.
Well, I don't think the theory has gone away, and maybe that leads to what Juno, I hope I pronounced your name right. Juno was asking about whether math is really a necessity to even know machine learning. And maybe before I comment, I'd like to maybe pass it on to Heli to comment on that question.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely not. You don't have to know math to start with. And I think if you are not into math, that's the way to do it. So you just start with machine learning without thinking about math. And for me, that's actually how I started. And then I realized math is there. And I had to repeat everything I learned in high school about math to understand things. And I so loved it. But it's not something you have to do. Definitely not. But for me personally, that was the kind of the fruit here why I really liked machine learning, but not in the beginning, because then I didn't have the time and energy to learn that also. So no, you don't have to. The tools will do everything for you in the beginning, and you will just, well, actually you will manage forever without knowing math if you are using the tools that will guide you. So definitely no.
That's interesting, because I would never have thought. To me, machine learning, AI is all about math and data. And do you find many people going into that area without a deep knowledge of math? You do.
Yes, and because of the tools. So we have a lot of like citizen tools for machine learning that will do automatically things for you. So auto machine learning kind of things. So those are for people who are not so keen on math, but they understand the data they have and they want to get some insight from that data. So using those tools will be the key for that. And then there are people who want to build new algorithms and so on. They need to know math.
Okay.
So
is it really the domain of the data scientist, or are these tools allowing non-data scientists to really make a lot of headway with machine learning?
Yes, these are tools for anybody. So you don't have to be a data scientist. Like Oracle has this analytics cloud, which is a tool for somebody who's not a very technical person. You have to be a little bit of technical person to be able to use it, but not so. So that's a tool that could be for a person who's not so interested about learning how machine learning really works, but knows the business area, understands the data. And if the tool is giving you results, you understand if the results make sense or not. So these are for the kind of business person, maybe economist or any kind of business person.
Help me out here, Adrian. The autonomous database has some machine learning instances that you can stand up. What in layman's terms, what does that really afford you? Is it just kind of you stand that machine learning instance up and then you can do whatever you like, or is there a bunch of tools kind of already in place that you just need to enable, or is it just? I mean, I haven't had any experience with the machine learning instances yet.
So for any database, I believe version 19C and above, you do actually get a whole bunch of PL SQL routines that you can use for machine learning. The autonomous database takes one step further. It provides you what is known as the Oracle Machine Learning Notebooks. And it's a way to kind of help people, do, test out models, query their data, do some visual summaries of what they have and stuff like that. Heli, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, so the machine learning, Oracle Machine Learning for SQL, as they call it now, is in the database. So it's actually 3 packages that has procedures and functions. So it's just calling those packages and the procedures and functions to actually build the models and use the models, and also to prepare the data for machine learning, which is the biggest part of machine learning, by the way. So all the databases have those packages. And since last December, they have been free to use. So you don't have to pay license for them. Before that, you had to pay license. Now they're for free. And as Adrian said, the autonomous, the cloud brings this special thing that you will have even notebooks to use them, which is actually a very good tool for a data scientist.
Yeah, well, and one thing that I'm really waiting for is, and they've kept on, they being Oracle have kept on talking about it, is the Oracle machine learning for Python and R, because I think these are the two primary languages that you'll find a lot of data scientists are using right now. Right now it's just OML for SQL, but with the added two, that would help greatly, I think, with adoption.
So guys, we've been, even in this short conversation, we've almost interchangeably been using machine learning, AI, or at least saying both words in the same sentence. And Neil actually is posing the question that I had myself is, can you explain the difference or the relationship between machine learning and AI?
Do you want to start, Adrian?
Yeah,
It's a tough question.
I know Heli has a great slide on to kind of show you where it subsects. But for me, machine learning really is a subset of AI. Machine learning itself could not necessarily make any decisions, but when you delve into the realm of AI, you're actually relying on the machine to make those decisions themselves. So they can use using machine to learn the data and make decisions, and then have systems that actually takes actions on those. There was one particular topic that I used to like, and I think these days it's probably known as digital assistants, and as intelligent agents, right? They are little bots that, you know, they're trained to make decisions on behalf of somebody else. And when you build those type of systems, to me, that's AI. And that's how I can distinguish the two. Ellie?
Yeah, I love to explain it that machine learning is the heart of artificial intelligence, or the brain, or whatever. So it's kind of inside artificial intelligence, and it's the thing that without that, artificial intelligence wouldn't be anything. So that's how I like to explain it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Adrian's explanation was very good.
And I think machine learning is pretty much what it says, right? It's learning off some data, but there are some systems that I was taught in school, right, that are not necessarily like neural networks, where it looks at data and it does its own internal decisions on classifying between blue or red, right? Shouldn't use that. But there are other AI systems or knowledge systems that rely on techniques where it just really depends on learning from people, right? Understanding what they do. So it's a hard, like Heli said, of AI, definitely, and that's how I look at it. But I think a lot of people just use it interchangeably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Skynet, from the Terminator movies, Skynet would be artificial intelligence that was the result of machine learning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would be.
Now you put it in terms I can understand.
And since you brought up Skynet, I just remembered something that really struck me when I used to have a mentor back in the university, and I had one conversation with him. So there was this project, I think it was called OpenPsych, and it was a project that aimed to build a knowledge system that had the intelligence of a 6-year-old child. And I was just discussing with he's a professor at the university, and every now and then we had some coffee talk, right? And so I brought up this interesting project, and he asked me this question that stumped me for a while. He just said, "Can you find meaning in the dictionary?" So I know, Monty, you're intelligent. What's your answer?
Can I find meaning in the dictionary?
Yeah.
I think you
Yes or
can.
no?
Boy, it's a tough question to answer. Michelle's got her hand up.
Well, I would find it somewhere between L and N, I suppose. Mark, you were ready with that one. All right.
So, Heli, what do you think?
So what was the question?
And you said that it stumped you for a while, but I'm assuming that you got the solution. So share with us your.
Yeah, that is. So, Heli, what's your thought about whether you can find meaning in a dictionary?
Yes, I think it's very meaningful for me. So there would be a meaning.
So his answer was actually no.
I thought this was
for you, but for me, it's yes.
I thought about it for a while, right? Because the dictionary really is just a book that captures meaning.
Yeah, there's no context.
Yeah,
That's
we
yeah.
give the meaning, and then we documenting that in the
that's true.
in a book, or these days it's electronic forms. But I think his key point was that this project is ambitious. Yes, they're trying to create a system that could do all that. But at the end of the day, what it does know is really what the humans actually feed it, right? And that maybe leads to sometimes why we talk about biasness in machine learning models and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, it was a interesting question that I got, and I remember it for years. So I thought I just kind of share it.
Yeah. It's actually that it all depends on the context. That's one of the big things about data. So depending what context the data is, it can be different. So it's
Heli, how confident are you? And your answer can be 100% confident. But how confident are you in us being able to kind of keep artificial intelligence under wraps? As far as machines being able to achieve self-awareness and be able to think for themselves like that. There's difference of opinions out there about all that. How confident are you that we're going to be able to remain in complete control of all that?
Well, at least until I'm still here, we are okay. Don't know what will happen when I'm gone, but it's a long way to that. So now, just an example that our children, they learn color green can be grass, it can be, so they know that it's a something that is always green. It doesn't have to be grass. Something else can be also green, and it's the same green. Computers don't know that. So they don't have the common sense. So without common sense, I'm not too afraid, because that's quite important for us when we are learning things, because it gives us huge leaps in learning. So we learn in leaps. We learn a lot of things in just learning something. We learn many other things without realizing we just learned them as well. Computers don't have that yet. So before that, I'm okay. I'm confident.
What about
maybe sometime? Who knows?
What about quantum computing? Is that's going to just dramatically increase the computing power that we have? Is that going to accelerate things dramatically? And are you going to back off on your predictions if quantum computing takes hold?
It just gives us more abilities to use machine learning. So we are able to build more complex models and use more data and so on. So it actually I think it's a good thing, only brings positive things to our area. I don't see it as a negative.
Quantum would be an accelerator then of machine learning. Have you seen anything else lately that I'm assuming that the COVID pandemic would have been also an accelerator of research and work done in the area of machine learning? Is that something that you're finding as well?
Yes, a lot. So the world has changed a lot, and nobody knows how permanent it is. I'm very convinced that some of these changes are permanent. So people will not be traveling as much as they used to be, because they have this kind of tools to still have the meetings. They do travel, but not as much as before. A lot of people have lost their jobs, not just because of the economics, but also because those jobs don't exist anymore. So computers have replaced some of the jobs. So world has really changed, and that has given us pressure to do something. So machine learning can be helping us on these issues. It can be helping us to actually get rid of people by replacing people by machines, but it can also help us to find new business ideas and new things how to improve the world.
Yeah.
So if you have, let's talk about medicines. So if you want to invent a new medicine to help with sickness, you have to test it for very long, and especially if I think it's called combination drug in English. So if it's actually helping in many things at the same time, testing is very difficult, and it's actually a little bit risky too. So those test groups probably are not too happy to die or got some kind of severe problems with the medicine. But you can build models with machine learning and see how the medicine would work. So you don't have to do it in real life. You can do it virtually and get actually very good results. So it will help us to invent new things. And you already know when you go to the shop, you don't always have to go and see the cashier. It's possible that you just pick whatever you want, you leave the shop, and you will get the receipt in your email. You don't have to pay anybody. You don't have to meet anybody in the shop. You don't have to see a cashier or any security guides or anything.
That's called shoplifting.
Yeah, but it's not. If they have this kind of system, so they have cameras that actually watch you, and the camera is registering whatever you just took from the shop, and based on that, you will be invoiced. So a lot of things are different because of what we've been experiencing now. So actually, what has been happening is that this pandemic has been what's the right word? Making more
accelerator.
Yeah. So speeding up the artificial intelligence and machine learning revolution. So more people and more companies have learned that this is actually something that we should be using more than we are using now, or we should start using it.
So in that context, then you mentioned earlier that machine learning is in some ways removing jobs, but if more businesses need it, in some ways, I imagine it's also a creator of jobs. Then people should be afraid of machine learning and seeing it as something that's going to take our jobs away. It's also a creator of jobs. Then.
Yeah. But it does take away physical jobs, and I think that's where most people might have concerns.
Right.
Yeah, I can understand the concerns, but I've never felt like you can work yourself out of a job. I mean, if you know, there's always going to be additional opportunities out there. I just believe that. I got a question that, all right, we're talking machine language, or we're talking machine learning. How could we apply machine learning to application development? Because I can see where it would there's applications of once the data is once the data is collected through an app or whatever, then we can work with it and do some predictive analysis and all that. But as far as the application development, is there a way that you can see us utilizing machine learning to help us develop the apps?
Well, the predictions say that we don't need you anymore in the future. The computer will do the programming. So we'll see. I remember when I started and we had the case which became Designer, and it was able to produce some program, some coding for you, which was horrible. So I hope this new thing can do better. It's not there yet. So it can and produce you simple code, but not the most complex one. But I think what it will change is that it will do the easy part for you, and you can just do the more difficult one. So your job will be more interesting in the future. So that's how I see it.
We're safe for now, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, we are all safe. Don't need to worry. I think the future is that we just have to learn to play with the computer. So we need to be cooperating with computers. So we shouldn't be fighting against, and we shouldn't be hoping that they will replace us, but we should be cooperating with the computers.
And Monty, I just wanted to kind of comment on your question about how we can, how do we actually see ML being part of an application? There's one use case that I remember us studying was, and something that we're kind of familiar with, right? When you go to this supermarket and you check out, you always notice on the side of the cashier there's always stuff on display for you to pick, and there used to be and there used to be this. I can't remember what it was exactly the items that they put, but it seems really
Diapers and
funny.
beer.
Yeah. So, so they would have diapers near
Chocolate bars, always chocolate bars that we don't want to.
Chocolate bars are fine, but they said diapers, right? And why diapers was because over time they noticed that it usually was and no gender bias here, but at the time they said a guy goes to the supermarket to shop for his wife, and then he will go out and when he wants to check out and he'll suddenly remember, oh, I forgot to get the diapers for my kid. So he's because he's already in line, he's not going to walk somewhere else. He'll just pick it off the shelf, which is magically next to him, right? But that had to do with something they called basket analysis, and it really analyzed what you were what people were buying, and they then trying to lead you on to do all these things. And we see it today with online shopping. Amazon has done it forever. Right?
All the big data.
Right. And it's always showing you stuff that you're somehow interested in, or maybe right now you're on Facebook and you're seeing this ad on machine learning because why you're attending a session on machine learning, that kind of thing, right? It's picking out those signals and making those recommendations to you.
Yeah, this is the next step from this diaper thing, is the recommender systems, which is machine learning. So they are based either your profile, so they already know that you like this kind of things, or it's based on the items that you usually buy. So this is similar to the item that you usually buy, or it's based on other people that are similar to you. Right. So if this person who bought these things that you bought something else, probably you would like it too. So recommending that to you would make sense. So recommender systems are very interesting and very useful.
Netflix does this particularly well, right?
Yes.
As the more we use it, the more we watch, the better it gets at recommending things to us.
Yeah, there's the question.
Juno is making a similar comment, Adrian, to what you were saying about what sort of jobs machine learning will create and what sort of jobs it will replace. So yeah, I agree with that.
But and I think we covered this a little bit earlier when we said, there will be some manual jobs that are going to be diminished, but then there will be other opportunities. Do we agree with the question that these other opportunities are going to be highly skilled, or are we going to spawn some? Are these jobs just going to shift into something else? Because that's I would like to think that there would be other opportunities, but and not just for the highly skilled IT population.
I'm going to comment on something, and it also relates. I think there was a question from Luke earlier on asking about whether there are applications in healthcare, and this one's interesting, right? One of the other systems that was in my textbook before was a expert system that kind of told doctors what based on the signs and symptoms that they see, what should be the appropriate antibiotics that they should administer. And that system, I think it was being used in the United States, but it was never, publicly made. It wasn't really public knowledge in that sense. And it had to do a lot with the question of what if the patient dies after they follow that decision, right? And right, I think even today, they've talked about how deep learning was really useful in trying to diagnose COVID cases based on just the MRIs that they were doing, and at the end of the day, I don't think they would ever be able to get rid of the doctor, because you always needed somebody to take that liability, and the machine cannot be sued in court, right, for malpractice. it also questions whether you should then go after the person who created the machine learning model. So at the end of the day, I think there are certain jobs that still would be resistant to that. But a lot of things like, as Juno pointed out, people on the floor taking money, cash, or just moving things around, that's something to be very careful about.
Yeah.
Well, back to what machines are able to do, or what people are able to do. There's no machine will ever be able to have bedside manner, or to hold a patient's hand, or talk him through his options, comfort him. So I think there's I'm sure we can automate a lot of the diagnoses, the treatment plans, but I think that's where a machine will never be able to replace the human behind that, right?
Michelle, have you heard of eyeball?
I haven't. I don't need eyeball. Is it a machine that's going to give you the warm and fuzzies?
It's a cute little dog.
A cute dog. All right.
Yeah, I think it's created by Sony, if I'm not wrong. It's a $6,000 dog that is able to react to you. And
really? All right. I'll take a real doctor any day.
They actually use that kind of things for Alzheimer patients. So elderly people who kind of need attention, and there's not enough nurses to give all the attention to them, and a real dog would not survive. So they have this kind of dogs or whatever animal for those elderly people that they can take care of, because this animal really doesn't need to be taken care of. So there's no risk, and it's just a positive thing. But as Michelle said, this is something that doctors cannot be replaced of. There's a lot of research about it. So with the MRI or any kind of image recognition things about lungs or whatever organs we have, the machines might be, depending on of course everything, might be better than the doctor, because they can see better than human eyes. So they can really make diagnoses better than we can. And also we can have a phone as a doctor in the places that we don't, where the distances are very long. So the doctor is not able to go everywhere. So the phone can be the doctor. And that's actually been used a lot now because of people wanting to have social distancing. So you definitely don't want to go to the doctor if you don't have to. So you can do most of the things using your phone, which is, I think, great. But still, you need to have the doctor who assures you that you will not die, this is okay, and so on. And besides, as I said earlier, these machines can be good or bad. They can be good in predicting, or they could be very bad in predicting. So if the machine says that I have a cancer, it's not a fact. It's just a possibility, a big possibility that I might have based on some facts. But I still need to be researched by a doctor, so who will tell me if it's true or not, and then tells me what to do next.
Right. Yeah,
so we need.
During COVID, the teledocs thing has just been wildly successful. I noticed when the vaccine announcement of a possible vaccine came out, that's one of the stocks that actually went way down, is because people have benefited from teledoc during the pandemic, and there's going to be people returning in numbers back to visit their physician in person. I got a question. Let's talk for a second about autonomous vehicles. Now, I think that's an example more of artificial intelligence, because I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming that these autonomous vehicles are not driving down the road and improving their algorithm as they drive down the road. Or maybe they are, but I was thinking that the decision tree and all that was kind of in the vehicle, and they're not improving the decision tree as they drive down the road. So if it's where I'm going with this is, you get into some real tough predicaments. You were talking earlier about the algorithm and who owns the algorithm and all that. If I'm driving down the road and the car has the choice between this head-on collision or some pedestrians on the side of the road, it's going to take evasive action. And who's responsible? I'm behind the wheel. but I had nothing to do with the algorithm. It brings up just a myriad of issues. Do you go after the car company? So if you were a car company, you really wouldn't want to have that kind of risk out there at all, because the people are going to be coming after you.
Yeah, so that leads in really nicely to a couple of comments and questions that have come in about. So Lance is talking about the ethics, and Honor is talking about privacy issues. So all of the advancements in the technology, there's a whole parallel science probably that needs to keep up pace, just as quickly. So I'm sure there's all sorts of new ethics programs that need to, ethical laws and regulations, privacy concerns that need to be following pace with what's happening on the machine learning side of things.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
that is a big question in machine learning. So the reason we don't have those vehicles driving around at the moment is exactly what Monty described earlier. So we have the technique for that, but we are lacking of the ethics and so many. So different kind of things that we should be agreeing. But we have a lot of researchers who are only researching the ethics of machine learning. So I hope we will get a lot of advice from them, but still it's not an easy task at all.
Yeah.
And privacy is a big issue. So because the thing is that data is the power. The more you have data, the more you know about people and everything. And you can use that power for good or for bad. And it's about your ethics, which one you choose. And we can't tell because we already know we have laws and not everybody obeys the laws. So there is never going to be a situation when we can trust that everybody will do what is good. There are always somebody who will do bad. So like facial recognitions, we can have surveillance cameras watching. The child is missing, the camera can tell you the child is here, and you find the child in 5 seconds. Or this camera can be used for something very bad, to know what you are doing, and then a fraud or whatever can be done based on that information. So it is, ethics and security are very big issues.
What about deepfakes? How concerned are you about deepfakes?
Oh, huge.
Yes, I agree.
Me too.
It is. So
Yeah.
in the beginning, they were very funny. You can always recognize, but not even a computer can recognize nowadays. They are very, very well done.
Well,
Yeah.
if you would, Adrian or Heli, kind of explain to all of us exactly what deepfakes are, because not everybody may know.
Do you want to talk, Adrian?
I can try. So there is a class of deep learning algorithms. I think it's called GAN. I can't remember the full term. It's something about adversarial networks, where you have machines basically competing against each other. And I think what's scary was, so the other day I was having lunch with a friend who's teaching. It was just a few. I'm within the laws, right? And he was talking about, because everything has gone online, you have this problem of students kind of cheating on their assignments, right? And then they're looking at anti-plagiarism software and all that, and looking at this whole class of deepfake type algorithms where they basically recreate alternate realities. It won't be hard for somebody to write such an algorithm against that can counter these anti-plagiarism software, right? So they use machine learning to pick out fakes, right? But you have another class of algorithms that does the opposite of trying to create the fakes that are non-detectable. So then you have a huge problem. So whatever type of software you use, and maybe even putting a human to screen it, may not be able to check those. And yeah, it's scary.
Yeah. So what I understand it to be too, you gave a very technical description of it, but they could have me saying I think Oracle database is horrible, and I'm all for SQL Server. And you'd have me saying that on film, even though I never said that. But you'd have me saying that on film, and it's getting to the point where, like Kelly said, it used to be very obvious that that was a fake. But with what they call deep fake, there's very, very limited, almost impossible ways to tell that I never said that. And so, you know, already in the media, it's everybody's, I never said that, whatever. It becomes increasingly difficult because, you know, now you can have somebody on film and they can say, that's not me. And there's absolutely no way to prove that it wasn't them. And so it really is going to be, as that continues to advance, deep fakes are, you know, when deep fakes should be a real concern for everyone.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
I would love, I'm just looking at the time, and I'm conscious of the fact that our audience is very much Apex developers, people in the Oracle community. I'd love to hear a little bit from you, Heli, Adrian, any work that you're doing at the moment that could be relevant to this community, talking about Apex and machine learning. Is there something that you can share specifically about your work, or things that you think would be of interest?
Well, first of all, this should be very interesting to any Apex developer because, as I mentioned earlier, Oracle Machine Learning for SQL is PL/SQL packages, and that's something you use every day. So it's about PL/SQL and SQL. That's your tools.
Right.
So using machine learning is very natural to you. And a lot of your job is already managing the data. So getting the data in a better shape to be more usable with your end users. And that's also machine learning. So you have the skills and you have the technique already there. So this is very relevant. So in a database, if we talk about Oracle Machine Learning for SQL or R and soon Python, everything is in a database, just like any database objects. So they are inside the database. And that's what you are doing when you are using Apex. You are using things that are inside the database. So when you build a model, it's an object in a database. And when you do predictions, you are using that model and you are using SQL to actually publish the predictions or whatever you're doing with it. And you can do it as a batch job, or you can just do it row by row way. So if you have a customer who wants to know, is this yes or no, the computer can tell you using your Apex interface, is it yes or no? So should I do it or should I not do it based on the facts that we know from the data? So everything here is something you already do. So if you're not doing machine learning yet, you should start tomorrow. I will give you one day to think about it, but tomorrow you need to start.
Right.
But Adrian, what do you think?
There are, I think the question is also, do we look at the problem that we have first, right? I mentioned earlier about what Amazon does with recommender systems, and their problem really is to solve how can I maximize my sales. So if you had a system like that, I think recommender systems can be built with OML for SQL, but there may be other things like if there's something that you need to do image recognition on, right? Maybe you have somebody take a photo and maybe very simple, the OCR question, right? Trying to pass out text from an image. I don't believe we can do that today with what we have in OML4J, but there are other options. So we can think about other cloud providers like Amazon or Azure. They have these services where you could do AI, apply AI methods on. I think, and don't quote me on this, I think Oracle does have something coming up. I think it's called OML microservices. we'll see when that actually shows up. But today, you can also, especially if you're on the Oracle Cloud, you can look at things like cloud native Oracle functions to maybe run some of your machine learning workloads based on your data. So there are definitely areas that we can apply, but the always think the most important factor I always think that we need to consider is there a problem that we need to solve that AI can apply, not the other way around, right? Don't think that you want to use machine learning, but you don't really have a problem to solve. You're trying to use a method. So always look at the problem first, and then see how you can integrate these advanced techniques, and there are definitely many solutions that you can decide and use.
Yes, so definitely it's not a silver bullet. So if it's an easy if and else, then machine learning definitely is not the solution. So it has to be very complex or changing frequently so that the programming will not follow. So it has to be something different. If and else is not the thing. Oracle also has the OCI data science cloud that is for Python. So it's an environment where you can program using Python. And you can publish those also using the functions. Or you can just use Python in your own IDE, whatever you're using, and just connect to Oracle database to use machine learning models that can do image recognition and so on. I actually had a demo on that. Was it a year or two ago at the Open World or the Code One event? So you can do that, no problem at all, but you cannot do it with SQL. So PL SQL is not supporting it, at least not yet.
So yeah, we're seeing a few questions and comments coming in about people wanting some specifics. Labs,
Right now, I think the classic one is probably Charlie's wine recommender system.
Yes.
So Charlie is the product manager, correct, of Oracle Machine Learning, and I think he's been doing a whole series of webinars about his wine recommender system, and wine recommendations it's a classic machine learning hello world type of app. I think they built the UI around Apex, so that's something you can look at. But at the end of the day, Apex is the front end, I think, to your machine learning models, and that's where you kind of will look at it, right? It's not hard, I say. The challenge is always to find the problem and the application to use it.
Yeah, but that's a good example that you raised. I've seen a few of those webinars before, so we'll be sure to link it in the notes, because I think people want to see examples. They want to, makes it easier to understand. So I'll make sure that we link that up. That was I think a good prototype or demonstration of how Apex could be used in this.
I would, however, want to ask Heli. So Heli, you're a specialist in machine learning, and so I was wondering if you had any one particular use case that you can talk about one and that you find particularly interesting.
I have one classical example I always like to tell everybody because it was so fascinating in general. But just before I tell about that, I just give some examples what you can do very easily with Oracle Machine Learning is like trying to find customers that might be leaving. So you want to contact those customers and make them stay, because we all know that a current customer is much cheaper to keep than trying to get a new customer, or even to try to get this customer back after the customer leaves your company. So this is a very classical example. Another one is finding those customers that would most likely buy your product based on whatever you know about those customers. So you don't have to call all the customers, you can just call the potential customers for that product. Or maybe something that I do sometimes. So I also teach at the university, and I want to know how many students I will have in the course. So I will not book a wrong kind of room. So the room will be the right size for my students. So I might want to predict the number of students for the lecture. Or maybe you want to manage your stock. So you want to know, classical example, you have a very cool refrigerator that knows what is in a refrigerator and what's missing. So it can tell you that your milk is going to run out tomorrow. So next time you go to store, you better buy some milk. And also cheese is running out. So it can tell you that kind of things.
Toilet paper.
Yeah, toilet paper, definitely during COVID times.
Yeah.
So all these kind of things. And something I find very fascinating is that I have a restaurant that I sometimes order home delivery, and they use artificial intelligence for actually scheduling the routes. So where to drive first and when. So optimizing where to drive. So it can be used anywhere. But my favorite one was one factory. I always tell the same story because I love it. So I was having a meeting with the manager of this factory. We are sitting in his office and suddenly a big bang. So we hear a huge noise and I'm like, what happened? Did something break? And he said, yeah, it happens every now and then. It's one of our machines and it just stops working and we have to fix everything. We need to stop the factory for a while, fix everything, and then we continue and it's not serious. Wow. I said, but if you have to stop the factory for half an hour, I think that would cost a lot, or maybe an hour. So are you not curious to know what it is? And he said, of course I'm curious, but I don't know how to know. I said, well, you have all kind of IoT here. So you have the temperatures, you have all kind of measures everywhere. So why are you not collecting the data? And he said, we are collecting the data. I said, okay, so you have all the data for everything and you just don't use it. Yeah. So, but you have the knowledge here. So using the data we have here, we can know what happens. So using machine learning and your data, we will find out what's wrong. And that's what we did. We actually had one of the professors from the university, from the math department, that was helping to find the correct algorithm for it, because this was a little bit difficult because it was not, most of the cases, it's something that happens now that is the reason. But this was something that happened a little bit before. But I didn't know if it's 1 second, 10 seconds, 1 hour. So what's the time that it takes before this thing happens? I only know it's not exactly the same time. So I can't go and check the data and see what's happening at this time. So using that algorithm, we found out that the temperature goes down just a little bit. You don't feel it, but the machine did. So the temperature goes down. And based on all the IoT in this factory, we realized it was one door that was opened, just briefly, opened and closed. And that was the reason for this machine to stop working. It was a very fragile machine, but nobody knew it because this door didn't open often and it was closed immediately. So I think this was amazing.
Fascinating.
Well, so
that's one of those things that look random, but it's not. It happens every time that door opens, so it's not random at all.
Yeah, but if you ask people, they would never tell you. They didn't recognize that it has something to do with the door. And they recognized when I said, maybe it's the temperature. They said, yeah, it could be the temperature, but this temperature is stable. Yeah, it is stable. My skin doesn't realize the temperature is changing because it was so small change. But the machine did.
That probably never happened at my house growing up because my dad always said, shut that door, shut that door. So it would have never happened in the last way.
Your father was right. There you see.
So the data had been collected, so you didn't have to worry about that part. So assuming that the data was there, how long did it take you to see those patterns or to figure it out from the data that you had?
Well, it depends. So sometimes we already have pre-built data sets that we can use that will help our model to learn faster. Or we have pre-trained models that we can use, let's say a piece of model we can use to just make our process faster, so it will learn faster. And sometimes you have nothing and then you start from the scratch and it takes a long time because you really need to have data. Machine learning will not work without data.
Right.
So you need to have data, unfortunately. But it's a good thing also. So before this, I was working a lot with data warehouse projects. And the biggest thing with those is always the data, because people think their operational system data is very good quality until they start building data warehouse and they realize it's rubbish. So for some reason, it wasn't so good quality. And machine learning is doing the same. So when you start using machine learning, you realize that the data you thought was such a good quality is not.
Yeah.
So usually that is the biggest part of the project, that you have to fix the data first.
Mm-hmm.
I think Heli also brought up an important point about IoT, right? AI, I think it's becoming more relevant today because of our IoT devices. I have this little camera here, and it's a small little chip, right? It can be powered by a battery, but in it actually has one of those inferenced models that Heli was referring to, where they've pre-trained it to do face recognition, for example, and this guy, he's able to capture a picture and pick out faces, and if he had some way to kind of transmit that to a backend system, it could make maybe some decisions based on what it sees, and at the same time capturing stuff, and it also able to react with other IoT devices. So like maybe turn on the heater automatically based on the temperature that's outside, that somebody has come home, or the dog's unhappy. Lots of interesting things going forward, I think.
And I think now that you talk about the camera, think about it. It's not long time when we had paper pictures. So you had a film in your camera, you take a picture, and that's it. And you were very cautious not to take too many because the film will run out.
Yeah.
And then we had this kind of digital pictures. So that's kind of revolutionary, because now that it's digitalized, we are able to use it for machine learning as well. And if you use your phone and you take a picture, there's always this triangle coming around your face. Do you have rectangle coming around your face? It's not an old invention. It's actually quite new. So this is something that we take for granted now because we've been using it now for some years. But let's say, already 10 years ago, it was not that way. So things have been improving a lot. So now we have better quality images that we can use for let's say facial recognition or whatever, image recognition, image classification, any kind of tasks like that. So for instance, from the video, we can have program watching who's following social distancing and who's not. And then we can alarm, this person is too close to other people, danger. So
There's
a lot of things we can do. Yeah. Thanks to technology.
I mean, this is a topic that we could probably keep talking about for hours, but I want to be respectful of people's times. Heli, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's fascinating, and I think the applications are limitless. Looking forward to seeing what comes out of it.
Michelle, sorry to kind of, just wondering, Heli, since we're wrapping up now, I just want to know if there are any. If I wanted to learn more about machine learning and stuff like that, especially in the Oracle world, do you have any tips or resources that we could go to and find out more?
Now, my favorite answer here would be something that I'm not allowed to say yet, but Adrian already knows it because he's been reading the book. So there's a new book coming out pretty soon.
Oh, that's
it will be fantastic because Adrian has been reading and commenting. So yeah, that will be coming out soon. Of course, depending what you want to learn. So first of all, there are different kind of people. There are people who love to read books. There are people who love to take courses, and then there are people who just like to read blogs and not whole books. So depending which one are you, I don't know what is the best. Oracle luckily already have some courses that you can take, and Coursera or any of these are available, of course. Then blogs, there's quite a lot of blogs about already Oracle Machine Learning. So Google OML for SQL. That's Oracle Machine Learning for SQL. Also depending what you want to do. So if Apex is your world, probably this Oracle Machine Learning for SQL is what you should be doing, at least first. Maybe later you can add R, and maybe you can add Python as soon as we get it inside the database. So these would be something you want to do. Then if you have the cloud, you can take the free cloud, by the way, the free tier cloud. Adrian has written a great book about it, by the way. Go and buy that book too. So you might want to take the free cloud and test there, because as we mentioned earlier, it comes for free with any of these clouds. But with the autonomous cloud that is in the autonomous database that is in the cloud, you also have the notebooks. So you can start using the notebooks. Adrian already mentioned that with the notebooks, you can have a graphical way of seeing your data. So you have graphs and charts very easily. It will help you to understand your data better. So probably that's something I would do. And as you already know, I'm sure, is that this free tier also have Apex pre-installed there. This is something also new, not something we had a year ago. So definitely worth trying there as well. So you will have everything available immediately when you start the cloud. And if you think about the machine learning models that you will build with Oracle Machine Learning for SQL, they are, as anything else we mentioned here, database objects. So you can export and import them. So if you build them in your cloud and you realize they're very good, you can just export and import them to your production if you want so. These models can be used to, let's say, create a new table that you will be using in Apex, or you can use Apex charts to show the data in any way that it's more interesting. Apex and anything to do with OML for SQL is definitely combined because they are database things both. So for Apex developer, this is the way I would go, OML for SQL.
Good advice. Good advice.
Thank you very much.
And I think for those who do have experiences, so some of you might know at Kscope every year, we've for the last few years, we've had this emerging technologies track. Both Heli and myself were on the abstract committee. And if you do have something interesting to share in the realm of Oracle machine learning or just machine learning in general, please do submit your abstract. I think we still have time. Yeah, like
until
a few
the 17th,
days.
I think. Until the
Yeah.
17th, at least I hope. I'm counting on it.
So there goes your weekend.
Yeah, there goes my weekend. I'll be asking you for some feedback. All right. Yeah, so I put that link down. Before we go, Heli, wanted to really say a huge thank you. And don't know if you are aware of I'm sure you are, of Adrian's challenge coin, but Monty and I would like to offer you a challenge coin.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure it isn't your first, but hopefully.
Wow, thank you. I am so
pleasure.
honored now. Thank you.
Pleasure. Our pleasure. We'd if we treat you well, we know you'll come back for another session on the Insider. We really appreciate you.
Very much. Very much.
I will definitely be here again.
All right. I just wanted to cover a couple of things that are coming up next. So next week we have Stephen Feuerstein, who will be joining us to talk about PL SQL and lessons learned. Adrian, you'll be back with us on the 10th, talking about maybe touching on some of these notions again, OCI and cloud native. So really looking forward to that. And I think, yes, please, guys, comment, like, subscribe, do all the things. We'd really, really appreciate it. And Monty, anything else to add?
I was just going to repeat what you said. Heli, Adrian, Mark, obviously you, Michelle, thank you very much. Thank you for all the attendees that are on this journey with us. We will be back next week, the 17th, where we will be one step closer to machines achieving
19th.
self-awareness. Oh, the 19th, yes.
19th.
Where we'll be one step closer to machines achieving self-awareness. So we again, thank you all. Michelle, if you'll cue the music, we'll dance on out of here. Thank you all again for taking the journey with us. I hope you've enjoyed spending time with us on the inside. Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Insum Insider.